Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 167. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday, Steelers Nation, the final weekend before training camp gets underway. So we're all very excited and anxious, and if like me, a little nervous for this new experience as the Mike McCarthy era officially. It's already begun, but really gets into full swing in a couple of days. So, Dave, how you doing?
All right. Happy Friday. Happy last Friday before the start of training camp. A week from today, we'll have a lot to talk about with a few practices underneath the team's belt. I, like you, am interested to see kind of the differences and really the whole process of training camp, everything from reporting day, which I think we're getting the impression might not be the same old, especially when it comes to players reporting. It's going to be interesting to see how fast that day moves. Mike McCarthy obviously is supposed to speak at some point on Tuesday, and I would imagine we'll get the kind of the PUP or NFI moves or anything along those lines there. And you better sharpen your pencils and get your waterproof paper ready here, because this same time next week you'll already have a couple of training camp practices underneath your belt. So happy Friday to you. We're going to close out the 90 and 30 series right on time today, and got a couple other news and notes to kind of discuss to fill in a little bit of time, but I am ready to get Spaghetti Friday started.
This might be a better conversation for Monday, and we'll probably preview the whole roster for Monday, just sort of put a bow on it. But what players could be at risk of starting on an injured list? We know Broderick Jones, obviously the top name to monitor. Ray Fittipaldo speaking yesterday saying, quote, the expectation was that Jones will begin on active PUP. We don't know that for sure. Obviously he could. My stance that I think maybe he'll avoid it. Anybody else? I've mentioned maybe Jamel Dean, Dante Kent, couple of corners that might, wouldn't be shocked if both started on active PUP.
Yeah, I go through this every year, and I used to do a more detailed write-up every year, and then after years of getting surprises right at the whole Minka Fitzpatrick something with a bike
on his vacation, he fell off his bike.
And I think he had to go on a non-football. You just never know what's out there that you just don't know about. I think there was a little something about, I don't know, Sebastian Joseph Day with calf or something like that. I think during the, I don't know, what was it, OTAs or minicamp? I forget which one there. So I suppose that might be something to just keep an eye on. But, for the most part, at least as outsiders here, this feels like a relatively healthy roster. Will we get out of it with just, one player, maybe Broderick Jones going on PUP? Might there be 3 or 4? I mean, you look around the NFL right now, and this is a time of year where a lot of teams are reporting and starting to release their list, and you starting to see 3, 4, 5 names on each team's list. So we can sit here and guess about it and be wrong, but I think those the names you listed, and maybe Sebastian Joseph Day and Darnell Savage, what was going on with him that maybe prevented him from signing? Is that going to linger over into the start of training camp? We just don't know. But just keep your fingers crossed that it's a short list, and then if anybody is on that list, that the expectations are that they'll be ready to go maybe a week or so into training camp.
No doubt. And I say Dean because, according to Mark Cabali, he's made a couple references throughout the offseason of Dean being pretty limited throughout the spring, as he had that hip injury last year. And then Kent tore his ACL last December. Don't know where he's at in his rehab and recovery, but wouldn't be a shock if he was not fully cleared for the start of training camp, but that'll be the housekeeping we'll certainly be watchful of on Tuesday. Dave, speaking of injuries, unfortunately, with training camps returning around the NFL, injuries are part of that, and the Carolina Panthers have been snake bitten to start their 2026 season. They went into camp placing their starting right tackle, Taylor Moton, on one of the injured lists with a blood clot, so likely to miss some regular season time for that. They held their first practice yesterday, and one of their top pass rushers, second-year edge guy Nic Scourton, went down with a torn ACL in his right knee, almost certainly out for the season, which begs the question, a needy pass rushing team like the Panthers, team trying to compete after making the playoffs last year, could they have interest in Pittsburgh's Alex Highsmith? There's been already some buzz about Highsmith and his potential future somewhere else after Nick Herbig got his $100 million contract extension. So could a team like Carolina come calling about the Carolina native and Alex Highsmith, born in Wilmington, played at Charlotte? So just some dot connecting there. Not saying Pittsburgh should or would trade Alex Highsmith, but would not be shocking if Carolina picked up the phone and Dan Morgan called Omar Khan.
Yeah, first and foremost, you hate to hear it. This time of year is, when training camps happen, we're going to hear a lot more of this, unfortunately, around the NFL. Hopefully, few and far between when it comes to the Steelers and any serious injuries here. That's a big loss for them. It really is on the defensive side of football there, and talented edge rusher there, and it does beg the question of what they will do at this point. Maybe call around. Phone calls are free, and maybe they will call the Steelers about Alex Highsmith. And knowing that we were going to talk about this, from at least the Steelers angle this morning here, what would it take for the Steelers to trade him? And first and foremost, what would allow you, or why would you seriously consider trading Alex Highsmith? Is he quote unquote cancer, or a bad teammate, or anything, character, or anything along those lines? And the short answer to that is just no. You're not going to move Alex Highsmith just because culture or attitude or character or anything along those lines. So that's one thing there. From a cash perspective, does this team, as we have mentioned, most of the offseason seems very, very comfortable with the amount of cash that they're at least on paper set to spend at this point in time right now. It's a little bit higher, actually, considerably about higher than what I thought the total might eventually come in at. But cash is cash, cap is cap. And yeah, if they traded Alex Highsmith, they could save $14.5 million in cash this year. But does it feel like this team is really cash strapped to the point where they should consider trading Alex Highsmith, with that being the main reason? I think the short answer to that is no. If you want to look at this from a cap perspective, Cap is obviously very easy to manipulate. We still expect this team to do something with a contract, a restructure. We're going to see how they handle Jalen Ramsey's contract with the option bonus the closer we get to the season. If you moved Alex Highsmith from a cap perspective, would that allow for you to not have to restructure a contract later in the summer? I think the short answer is potentially yes to that. However, if you did trade Alex Highsmith this offseason or anytime before the start of the regular season, you would have $5.6 million in dead money this year, and then you would also have $5.6 million in dead money next year. To me, if you were that concerned about cap and you wanted to still retain the player, you could make an argument that just restructure Alex Highsmith's contract and kick a little bit of potential dead money into 2027. You could free up a little bit of cap space that way. The only other reason to me to trade Alex Highsmith, it would be because of what you could think that you, or would be potentially what you would get as compensation. In no way, shape, or form would I move Alex Highsmith for anything less than a second round pick. And just knowing that the injuries that this group has had at outside linebacker the last couple of years, and knowing the kind of player that you think that you're going to get with Alex Highsmith in 2026, and then combining that with TJ Watt and Nick Herbig. Man, to me, I don't think I'd want to move him for anything less than the first round. I mean, a second round pick is nice in theory, but if I'm going to deplete my depth, uh, for mainly a draft pick only, I want a team to overpay, and yes, I think it would be an overpay on the Carolina Panthers part to give the Steelers a first round draft pick. But if I'm Omar Khan and Dan Morgan and company is calling me, I would say unless you're willing to talk about a first round pick, don't even bother picking up the phone and call them back. And even then, we would have to look hard and long at it because of the other reasons that I gave. If you could answer, any of those other questions about character, cash, cap, in any other form, then maybe I'd be more apt to part with Alex Highsmith for maybe a second round pick. But in my opinion, Alex, the way I look at this thing right now, unless the Panthers are willing to talk about a first round draft pick, this is a no go for me from a Steelers perspective.
And to be clear, I wrote the article yesterday. It was more just the premise of Carolina might call Pittsburgh
Sure,
because it makes a lot of sense. It's
sure.
less about should Pittsburgh do it, would Pittsburgh listen? If they'd listen, you listen to anything. But to make the case though, and I like Alex Highsmith a lot. I've not had much interest in the thought of trading Highsmith or any of those guys even after the Herbig deal, which certainly became a big topic for that moment in time in early June. I think Pittsburgh loves its depth. It loves the strength of its outside linebackers, the engine of its defense. But to make the case, I don't think it's cash or cap. It's just the reality of you got three guys in Watt, Herbig, and Highsmith, and balancing all three to get reps and get good return on investment. That's going to be a challenge. Injuries to the group can and in the past certainly have changed things, but in present form, there's going to be a line to walk there. And really, I think the big reason is look at what happens next year. Do you think this group of three is going to be together for the long haul? It's hard to envision that. Next year, Alex Highsmith will go into the last year of his contract. He's going to want an extension. Can you really think about paying this guy, $30 million next year? It's hard to think about. So if there's an odd man out of this group, obviously TJ Watt, we'll see how he bounces back and what that future looks like. But you understand that, Highsmith may not be part of this team in 2027. And so it's worth having the conversation about moving him now for a premium pick in a 2027 draft class that may have plenty of good quarterback prospects where you may want extra draft capital to help make a quarterback happen. So I think that's the reason, because you recognize that, this time and really next offseason, you might be looking at a trade of Alex Highsmith, and you don't know what that landscape will look like, what the offers will be. And if Carolina is presenting a good offer to you right now, that's why you would consider it.
Yeah, I suppose, but the fact of the matter is it worth depleting your depth? Because look, I mean, the Steelers are going to tell you we're all in, and we think that we can win the Super Bowl this year. That's going to be verbatim out of their mouth. Why would you want to? Once again, I understand next year, but next year's next year, and there's nothing to say that Alex Highsmith can't have an Alex Highsmith season. Maybe even specifically one like he had last season, and then you still during the off season end up trading him before the draft and getting a draft getting a draft pick that way, whether it maybe be a second or third round pick there. I'm not dealing him this offseason for the mere fact of, well, we've got to figure out how we might, because look, TJ Watt might fall off. There's
Sure.
several things that can happen in the next calendar or before March that reshapes this whole thing. TJ Watt, maybe he Doesn't look like the TJ Watt that people expect him to be. Is there any injuries to that room? What's the progression of Jack Sawyer? Moving forward into this year. Not that you hope that you have to use him a lot, but obviously, if you did trade away Alex Highsmith now, you were putting Jack Sawyer into a situation where he's going to have to play a lot more snaps than what you originally. So I understand the premise of it. I do understand why the Panthers should call. I understand why the Steelers should certainly listen. But once again, I think it comes down to what's going to make it. What what would really twist my arm and make me seriously consider trading Alex Highsmith now? And to me, the only way I entertain serious offers if we're talking about a first round draft pick or I don't know, maybe a first and a or maybe a second and whatever. But even then, that first round draft pick, especially in a draft, in a draft class where you could potentially use a quarterback, really would give you a lot of ammunition with two first round picks to potentially go up to the top of the first round to get one of those top quarterbacks here. So I invite Dan Morgan to call. I think I've got Omar Khan's cell phone number if he needs it. I don't suppose he does, but I don't entertain it, Alex, unless it's a first round draft pick.
All right, fair enough. So
How about you? What would if Dan Morgan came today and said, "I'll give you a second and a fourth next year"?
I don't have a particular thought of like this is exactly my limit or the least I would take for Highsmith. I would be listening, and I don't know exactly if that's my ultimate conclusion. Obviously, you're not going to do a deal today. Carolina's not going to do a deal today. They're going to go through their camp and their options. Their depth is relatively weak, and so that's one other reason why I think they're going to start looking around the NFL. They signed Jalen Phillips to a huge $120 million contract, and so they got to go through their cap situation. They could probably structure the contract to Robert Hunt or somebody like that and free up some space, but they're willing to pay and spend, I think, on premium edge guys. So I would just say that I'm a little less dogmatic, or it's not just first round pick or no go for me. I think second round pick, something else. I still be talking and having that conversation.
All right. So we both agree, entertain the phone call and then see where it goes from there.
Right. So just an exercise because of the unique situation Pittsburgh is in, the need Carolina has, and even though obviously Highsmith has no agency in the deal, if they want to trade him or not, that's all up to Omar Khan. The fact that it is going back home to Charlotte, to Carolina, I think is another interesting wrinkle worth talking about in this process.
All right. We did that.
All right, Dave, let's move on here from Alex Highsmith to Drew Allar, one of three rookies who have yet to sign their rookie contract. I know we've mentioned it a couple times, always with the caveat of don't worry about it. The deal is going to get done. I believe that is still our stance. And so I know us talking about it might be creating some sort of sense of urgency or anxiousness about will this deal get done. He's only one of three rookies yet to sign, but I think a big domino fell earlier this week when Carson Beck, the Arizona Cardinals quarterback, signed his rookie contract. Also, Fernando Mendoza signed his yesterday. That's probably less impactful on Drew Allar than Beck was, but the quarterback dominoes are beginning to fall.
Yeah, and then there were three: Ty Simpson, Drew Allar, and Gabe Jacobs, of all players there with the Patriots. Those are your three. I think you're going to see move. I wouldn't be shocked if by Monday morning show we're talking about Drew being signed. So will that happen later today? I mean, these dominoes, as you stated, have fell. I think Beck being a big one there. I mean, I think these three remaining guys that are out there end up signing here in the next few days here. So that's been my thought on this. I think I said at one point I'll be shocked if camp opens up and Drew is not under contract. I still believe that. We still got a couple of days to go. But now that the log jam, if you will, started to see some pieces moved from it, I won't be shocked if Friday, Saturday, that Drew signs his rookie contract, and then we're all ready to go.
Mhm. In Pittsburgh, just having one of the later camps is a big reason why this deal hasn't happened yet. Beck signed on report day. The Raiders camp, I think, is opening up right about now or so, and so that provided motivation. Deadlines per action, as Andrew Brandt would say. So that's the reason why, and Allar's camp wanted to wait and see what Beck's deal was to have that framework before they put pen to paper. So it'll happen. Ty Simpson, the other third pick that has not signed yet with the Rams, and then Gabe Jacobs is a weird one. He was hurt in the spring. He only attended one spring practice, and so there's kind of some weird stuff going on there. And that's the reason why he was unsigned. But 55th overall pick, a non-quarterback, really should not be impacting Allar's situation.
Right, right.
All right, Dave, let's move on for the final time this offseason of season 16 with your 90 and 30 series. The written versions went up and concluded on Wednesday. We'll go through it ourselves. The final 7 names. We last left off with Darnell Washington. We'll pick things up with one TJ Watt, Dave.
All right, TJ Watt. What needs to be said about TJ Watt here that people already don't know? You obviously had him miss the games late last season due to what they call that, a partially what was along with that? What's the official term with it?
Yeah, it was just a punctured lung, I believe.
Punctured lung, and all. But he certainly did not have the season that a lot of people expected. Former NFL Defensive Player of the Year, registered 7 sacks to go along with 55 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 19 quarterback hits, 2 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, 8 passes defense, 2 fumble recoveries in regular season play. In the lone playoff game against Houston, had 6 total tackles, 1 quarterback hit, and 1 fumble recovery. He played in 14 regular season games due to a partially collapsed lung, was the word that I was looking for. Result of the dry needling procedure gone awry. He logged 812 total regular season snaps on defense to go along with just 28 more on special teams. Certainly, was not the season overall. He was, I think, chipped quite a bit. I think that's on record from PFF and Next Gen Stats. But even so, he produced just an 8.5% pressure rate when chipped in 2025, according to Next Gen Stats, contributing to 9.8% of his overall pressure rate, his second lowest mark since 2018, which was his second NFL season. Here's the thing with TJ Watt moving forward into this year. The Steelers, obviously need him to get back into that double-digit sack category, and with that double-digit sack category hopefully being closer to the 20 side than the 10 side overall. I think we'll see how much they actually move him around. I know Watt talked earlier in the offseason about being more. He probably needs to be more open to moving around, but what does that exactly mean? What is even though we might see him move around more than he has in the the last several seasons or period, really since maybe 2017, where he broke in initially playing on the right side. What does that actually look like? I do think they need to move him around more than we've seen. I don't know exactly what that percentage looks like, but if you're assuming that you've got the 3 outside linebackers that you do, you can have all those guys kind of move around. Maybe present a few more one-on-one matchups for Watt, particularly maybe with some interior guys when it comes to that. As you, I think, pointed out at some point during the offseason there, you probably want to think about dropping him into coverage less than this team has done. Specifically, I think last season there. What was the percentage you have on him dropping into coverage?
Just over 9% last year.
Yeah, and that was the highest it's been in a little while, I think, right?
It was about double what it was in 2024.
All right, so TJ Watt's even though TJ Watt can make plays going backwards, he's more impactful, more of a game wrecker when moving forward there. You need this guy to start playing more like the TJ Watt from a couple of years ago. You're definitely paying him a lot of money, and Patrick Graham's charge, and the outside linebacker with Aju, and look, they just need to find a way to unlock this guy a little bit more, to potentially free up, against maybe some double teams, some extra chipping, and then Watt's obviously got to stay healthy, something he's had a little bit of problem doing for the last several years here as well. So TJ Watt needs to play and put himself in the conversation. Probably, I think, defensive player of the year. I think those days are probably behind him. Can he at least put himself in conversation where he needs to be included in the defensive player of the year conversation? More than anything, he needs to be in the conversation of the Steelers defensive player of the year. And if he does that, and get him around 15 sacks and that pressure rate back up there and those forced fumbles, that's the kind of player that TJ Watt needs to be in 2026.
I still remain optimistic. I think there are some tweaks and levers to pull that I've written and talked about to get TJ Watt back on track. And sure, moving him around a little bit is a component of that. I think just a general refresh of a new coaching staff, new ideas, new thoughts might be good for him. And for a defense that's felt a little stale and underwhelming. I know Watt talked about in the offseason sort of studying like a rookie and having to put his head back into the playbook. And that just might be invigorating for himself and just to kind of lock back in. Not that he was ever lazy or had poor work ethics. The guy works harder than practically anybody else, but just a clean slate and sort of feeling like a rookie again to learn it all over might just give a perspective that he's not had in quite some time. But dropping him into coverage less, as you said, potentially playing him a little bit less too, which might sound a little counterintuitive, but I think with the really healthy rotation Pittsburgh has, even with a fourth guy like Jack Sawyer and Highsmith and Herbig, you get Watt down to about 75% of the snaps to keep him fresh, considering how hard he plays. He plays to run hard, not just a one-trick pony pass rusher. So all those things combined, maybe some tweaks in the stance and just reevaluating things, getting the run defense to be better, getting this defense into more third and longs. They had a low third and long rate last year of under 40%. So all those things go hand in hand. I think Watt certainly can still be a dozen plus sack guy.
I agree. And look, like I said, because of the games missed last year during the regular season, he logged 812 regular season snaps. That seems like a fine target, potentially for 2026, as long as he doesn't miss any games to go along with it, right? I mean, you've got guys like Herbig that you need to try to get on the field more. And even though TJ Watt's probably not going to want to come off the field, to that degree, I think you need to find ways to get him breathers throughout games. And I wouldn't be shocked if we see hopefully he stays healthy for all the games. And heck, maybe we can be optimistic and think that they won't need him for the finale. So that might be a game that he gets off there. But in total, I think somewhere between 800 and 850 regular season snaps feels about a good target for him, specifically if he stays healthy all season.
I mean, it depends on how many total snaps there are. Pittsburgh's defense was on the field simply far too often last year. So if we're going to base it off our usual 1,000, then 75% is 750. But we're splitting hairs. Obviously, there's an in-game feel to it. But just some sort of conscious thought about getting him on the field just a little bit less and having the defense play a fewer number of snaps is obviously another goal, which means the defense getting more stops on third down, the offense extending drives. The time of possession last year, Pittsburgh as a team was third worst, I think, time of possession. They were almost historically bad for the first 14, 15 weeks of the season, picked things up a little bit towards the very end. But still a believer in TJ Watt, but obviously a lot to prove in a different situation where he's got a little bit of pressure and microscope of, can this guy still be TJ Watt? This has not really happened before. I guess a little bit of that came off his pec injury several years ago about how would he sort of bounce back, and he did. And so this guy certainly has answered the call every which way, but it's a different circumstance this time around.
Look, if this thing goes sideways, in 2026, and we're talking about a season only even slightly better than he had last season, there's going to be a lot of rumblings after the season about is he worth the $42 million that he's scheduled to earn in 2027 there. So they definitely need him. He needs to get back to wrecking games on a more regular basis, and needs to obviously stay healthy. And if he does stay healthy and he plays the amount of snaps that we think he can play, and they do the things, move him around a little bit, don't drop him in coverage as much, I'm with you. I think we could at least be talking about a 15 sack season for him, and everything that comes along with him being a game wrecker.
Not to put too fine of a number on it on just one stat, but sacks is the measure of edge play. What is the minimum number you basically need to get out of Watt this year to feel good about his year?
It feels like 15, Alex, to me personally.
Minimum? Like a 14 sack season is just not doing it
Well,
for
I
you.
mean, yeah, you asked me. I mean,
No, I know.
I'm 15.
Okay.
I want to see 15 out of him.
All right. I'll say at least a dozen is sort of my minimum to feel like, okay, TJ Watt is back. And obviously he has 11 and a half and has 7 forced fumbles, and it's still probably a great year, but just to put a number to it, I'll say 12.
All right.
Let's go to another edge rusher in the back of the pack. It's Julius Welshaw, Pittsburgh's international exemption, the German native, although he's long removed from growing up in Germany. He played at Michigan for 4 years, went to Charlotte. It's been in Pittsburgh. This will be, year 3 for Julius Welshaw, and a practice squatter on that exemption. That's why we always have to say the 91 in 30 or the 91-man roster, because Welshaw is that exemption. A big guy trying to do something more than just be a practice squatter.
Boy, it feels like we know him. Feels like a veteran on this team at this point. This will mark his third Steelers training camp. As you mentioned, originally entered the NFL with the Steelers in 2024 as an undrafted free agent. Has been listed as the International Pathway program player for the team. He spent the entire 2025 season on the Steelers practice squad as an exempt player due to his international designation. Last year during the preseason, registered 3 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss, a quarterback hit in 85 defensive snaps last year during the preseason. He logged another 32 during the preseason on special teams. Let's see, also logged playing time at both outside linebacker positions throughout the preseason. This is a guy that went through the injury, I think, in his second season that resulted in him being waived injured, and then released with a settlement. But he worked his way back, I think, to later in the season to a member of the practice squad in November of 2024, and he remained there the remainder of the season. Look, the outlook for him is quite simple. The Steelers have already given him the designation of the International Pathway Program player. He should play quite extensively once again during the preseason, probably somewhere in the tune of 85 defensive snaps, give or take, like he did last year. Assuming that he can stay healthy throughout the summer, he feels destined to start the regular season on the practice squad as your exempt player on that unit. And assuming that happens, it could ultimately wind up being his last year in the NFL unless he finds a way to get himself elevated or promoted. The only way you really see that happening would be unfortunate injuries, maybe to the outside linebacker position. So really make sure you get a good look of Julius Welshaw during the preseason, because after that, I think we're merely going to be talking about him as a practice squad player moving forward through the 2026 season. And obviously, the Steelers will have to make the decision, whether or not there's anything to work with moving forward as to maybe signing him to a reserved future contract after the season. So, take a good look at him during the preseason. I imagine he'll play on the right and left side once again. It'd be interesting to see. I guess as his third technically preseason, he should be ready to play underneath the lights in these exhibition games.
He's a big guy. He's 6'6", 250 something, and so he can play the run well. His run defense is actually, I think, at a level that could play in a regular season game. The pass rush has been the issue. The first step, the bend, how tall he is. It's kind of hard to get around the edge. I know he had a bunch of sacks that first preseason. I think he had 3.5, and that's great, but they weren't the highest quality sacks. They were a little more cleanup, and it wasn't, to me, indicative of him being a great pass rusher, and he sort of regressed in that area last year, both in the box score and then just watching him in practice. But he's been largely durable and available. The knee injury, which is really unfortunate, that last preseason game of his rookie year against Detroit, but he's been, otherwise in camp and practices out there basically every single day. And you're right, he should get a ton of burn in the preseason because you assume that Watt, Highsmith, Herbig will not play much, and then really who's next? It's Sawyer, obviously, Jamin Davis, Welshoff. Is there anybody else that's going to get reps? I mean, they're kind of thin for camp at edge.
Yeah, let's see here. You
Am I missing
mentioned
a name?
Jam and Davis. Who else could potentially play on the edge? I mean, what do they think of Winman at this point? We'll talk about him in a little bit. He came. They used him quite extensively in the UFL this summer
Hmm.
as an edge guy. But he's a little undersized, so it'll be interesting to see how he's used. Yeah, once you get beyond assuming that Watt is not going to play a lot, if any. Herbig, same with Highsmith there. Who's left? Is Jack Sawyer, Julius Welshoff, maybe Jamin Davis, and we'll see what happens with Jacoby Windman. That's it. So those guys are going to get some burn.
Yeah, usually you have a four, so you kind of have four linebackers playing that game, kind of two pairs there. So yeah, Whitman can play inside out, so that's an option. Maybe an Anthony Goodlow too, but maybe they add somebody during camp. We'll
Right.
see. But either way, should be a lot of reps and exhibition action for Julius Welshoff.
Agreed.
All right, next on the list is wide receiver Levi Wentz, the undrafted rookie free agent out of Kansas. Spent time with Seattle earlier in the spring, so we got to learn from some pretty remarkable resumes, Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp. I talked to Levi Wentz, had an interview with him that went up on the site earlier this offseason. So local kid trying to stick around.
Yeah, born in Pittsburgh, attended Pine Richland High School in Gibsonia, signed with the Steelers in the middle of June. At Kansas in 2025, he had previously played at Old Dominion and Albany, but in 2025, 16 receptions, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns in 12 games. 6 of his 16 receptions resulted in gains of 16 yards or longer, and 3 of those went for 25 yards or longer. His longest gain with Kansas was 50 yards on 16 receptions. Let's see. Pro Day measured in at 6'2" and 3/8, 199 pounds, 31.5-inch arms. 40-yard dash, 4.59 seconds. Had a decent vertical of 34.5. Short shuttle time, 4.31, and 3 cones, 7.03. Those aren't bad agility kind of scores there at the end there. Look, as a late offseason arrival, he's going to have an extremely, extremely hard time sticking on the 91-man roster throughout training camp and the preseason. You got a loaded wide receiver depth chart in Pittsburgh. Wentz will more than likely be battling for a practice squad spot once training camp gets underway. He logged some time as a punt and kickoff returner in college. I've researched that only happened during his 2023 season at Albany. His other playing time on special teams throughout his college career, though, was pretty nondescript overall. Should he ultimately stick on the offseason roster throughout all of training camp, he would figure to receive late playing time during preseason games. It'll be interesting to see if they get far enough down in the punt or kickoff return lines to give him a shot at maybe one or so in preseason. I doubt that will be the case. He'll obviously need to flash as a wide receiver in his limited preseason action that he gets, if he gets any, and also he needs to show some promise on special teams to at least give him a shot at being a practice squad candidate to open the regular season here. So a very, very fringe player at this point. Not going to help that he was signed so late in the offseason
Hmm.
as well, too. So you're going to have to stay healthy, hit the ground running as probably a third or fourth string wide receiver here throughout training camp. And I think it'll be an accomplishment overall if he's on the 91-man roster by the time they get to the cut down date.
Yeah, you're right. He missed all the spring work in Pittsburgh, was signed after the team broke OTAs and mini camp. At least he was in a camp this spring in Seattle, but obviously not in Pittsburgh's system. So talked to him. He was at Old Dominion, was initially there as a corner and then safety. They had him playing linebacker for a year, so he's not really played receiver that much. And then in high school, he didn't play until his senior year of high school, mostly playing cornerback, hardly playing receivers. They're still pretty green to the position. Went to Albany, kind of broke out there. Went to Kansas as a backup, had a couple of big plays, 2 touchdowns last year for the Jayhawks. And so he's got some size. He's certainly got a can-do attitude. You're right, not much of a special teams resume, but whenever I spoke to him, he said he'll do whatever it takes. A guy that'll get after it as a blocker, special team, or whatever the team asks of him. And so certainly has an open mind, which will be needed to compete and try to stick around. But in that same bucket as Joaquin Davis and Brandon Smith and Cole Burgess, all trying to find ways to stand out at the end of a very crowded receiver.
Yeah, he better make sure them hamstrings and everything's all warmed up pretty good, because he's the type guy on this roster. He cannot miss any practices due to minor injuries, because that'll get himself waived injured real quick there.
From Wentz to Weegen, I said Weegen, that's how I used to say his name. Caden Weegen, the rookie 4th-round pick out of Iowa, drafted primarily as a returner, one of college football's best in recent years, and had, 6 career total returns for touchdowns during his college career. So that is going to be his ticket. It's an important one for Pittsburgh, but a pretty narrow one still.
You put your Weegen in there. 4th-round draft pick out of Iowa, as you stated there. Obviously, comes out as as one of, if not the best, return men, or specifically all around return men in college. Last couple of years here, he only registered 23 receptions for 197 yards and 1 touchdown, in addition to 23 carries for another 132 yards and 2 touchdowns during his college career. Most of his offensive stats came during his final 2 years at Iowa. He was used sparingly on offense, and to the tune of 299 snaps during his career there at Iowa. Lined up both in the slot and out wide regularly when he was on the field. Look, a very accomplished returner. 57 punts, 954 yards, 4 touchdowns with a long of 95 yards. Also returned 56 kickoffs for 1,538 yards and 2 touchdowns with a long of 100 yards. He exited college once again as one of the top returners in college football. Was an East-West Shrine game participant. I think we've heard Joe Clark and Josh Carney talk about, hey, this guy flashed a little bit at wide receiver during the drills and whatnot during the East-West Shrine game week there. All that said, he was more gadget than he didn't have a lot of targets there. It doesn't have a lot to lean to hang his hat on as far as receiver contributions there, or offensive contributions at Iowa overall. The Steelers obviously drafted him where they did for the look ahead that he is going to be the returner this year. Let's keep this guy healthy throughout the preseason. I imagine he'll get maybe a few returns there during the preseason, but you drafted this guy for what he did in college as a returner, not what he potentially will or won't do during the preseason there. So the Steelers need to take a move forward, significant move forward in their punt and kickoff return game, and they've got a lot invested in Weegen as a 4th-round draft pick to do just that. Could he potentially see time on offense throughout the regular season? I suppose, but nothing in my head makes me think that 3 times 17, what is that?
51.
If he gets over 50 offensive snaps throughout the regular season, something probably's gone wrong with the health of the wide receiver group that you had to get him on the field, such as that. So many happy returns for Weegen moving forward.
Right, and that's his primary function for this team, which desperately needs a shot in the arm, especially in the kick return game where they've been super stagnant under these new kick return rules, something he'll have to adjust to, given the college system is still the old method of kickoffs, but I think he's got the skill set and the ability to make that transition. So got to have good decisions, got to have good ball security. That's first when it comes to the return game and then create some big plays on top of that. Yeah, we'll see. In the regular season, would not expect him to be much of an offensive piece. Preseason, I want to see how he'll be used. RPO games, swing pass games, everything. Behind the line of scrimmage to 5 yards is going to be maybe his wheelhouse, but just needs to make those splash plays in the return game because that's what Pittsburgh drafted him for, and he certainly will get every chance at being that guy in the preseason and the start of the regular season, and there can be real value in that. And I was excited about drafting Legion. I did not think it was too soon to draft a returner, given all the draft picks Pittsburgh made on days 1 and 2, and this being still a huge, outstanding need for the team to draft the best returner in the draft is, I think, always a smart play at that point on day 3. But it is a more narrow path, and there really is not a lot of margin for error. We've seen this with when they signed Gunnar Wolszewski to be a returner. That didn't work out because of his miscues and poor decisions and bad ball security. And so Legion's going to have to do those detailed things first because you just can't get away with too many mistakes.
Yeah, that's well spoken by the president of the Caton Legion fan club.
I'm the president. We meet
president,
on we meet on Mondays.
All right.
All right, let's go to Peyton Wilson, and the guy certainly I think under some level of pressure this year, sort of like his running mate in Patrick Queen. So 3rd-year guy, and just needs to really show he can be the talent that I think is in there. Can he unlock that? Can he be a base down guy? I heard Mike DeFabo talk about he thinks Cole Holcomb is going to open up as the base linebacker. If he does, that's already a bad sign for Peyton Wilson. So we'll see how this new coaching staff sort of imagines Wilson's role and skill set, but a name that really has to stand out in some big ways this year, Dave.
Yeah, look, a lot riding on it for him this year as well, too, because potentially if he has a good season and can show that he can be that guy in the middle and be an every down player and potentially wear the green dot moving forward, Patrick Queen probably unlikely to return, at least where we sit right now for the 2027 season. We could be potentially talking about a Peyton Wilson contract extension next offseason if things go well. If you just look at his raw stat line from last season, it's not bad. 126 total regular season tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hits, 2 sacks, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 passes defense as part of him playing in every game. Also chipped in 4 total tackles, a pass defense in the playoff game loss. He logged 732 total defensive snaps and played a whopping 331 more on special teams. Was primarily obviously used as a second inside linebacker on the field alongside Patrick Queen. Let's see, he logged at least 21 defensive snaps in every game outside of the finale against the Baltimore Ravens last year. Play against the run in 2025 wasn't outstanding, and the same goes for his coverage snaps. He also missed 14 tackle attempts, according to PFF, throughout the regular season. They gave him for whatever it's worth category, a defensive grade of 52.6, and that was quite lower than his rookie grade that they gave him of 74.7. With this being his 3rd NFL season, you really hope and need Peyton Wilson to make a sizable jump, I think, in the overall quality of his play as Queen's tag team partner, if you will. I think we should expect at least another 120 plus tackles. Total tackles for Wilson in 2026 should be expected, perhaps even more tackles for loss to go along with a few more takeaways, such as maybe some forced fumbles mixed in there. This defense really needs to be better against the run in general in 2026, and for that to happen, I think Peyton Wilson and Queen obviously need to play a big part of that. Both of these guys need to get off their blocks better than they have the last few seasons, and obviously the missed tackles for Wilson need to come down in 2026. We'll how will this with the Steelers expected to play more too high shells and blitzing and how all that factor in to the inside linebacker game. I think more than anything, I just want to see these inside, and it's not just Wilson, it's Queen, it's whoever's out there overall. We want to see these guys be able to do a better job of reading, reacting, getting off blocks, and being more involved. Look, you can make 120 tackles during the season, but where are those tackles being made? Are they being made 7 yards down the field? That's obviously not a good thing. We need to see more tackles from these inside linebackers in general, closer to the line of scrimmage. We need to see the missed tackles come down overall. We just need to see. We need show us hope. Peyton Wilson, assuming he plays the kind of snaps that we think he will potentially play in here. Can he give this team any hope that he can be that guy in the middle moving forward after the 2026 season here? So, big season for Peyton Wilson.
No question. And it's all about being more aggressive, really trusting in reading your keys, coming downhill, playing with a more violent play style against the run, and then block deconstruction. The lack of length that he has is certainly, I think, one issue of why his run defense has been shakier. And so he's going to have to just really improve that. And it's the same positional coach in Scott McCurley, but it's a different scheme, it's a different DC. I think Pittsburgh is hoping its defensive line gets better, which will help free up the inside linebackers when you have Harmon and Black in year 2, Joseph Day, and if Benton can continue to ascend, even though his run defense certainly has been more of the sore spot compared to his pass rush. But yeah, when Wilson got subbed out 2 weeks in last year in base situations and Holcomb came in and then Malik Harrison came in whenever he got back healthy, that was a really poor sign. Pittsburgh started out the year bad against the run against Jets and against Seattle, and they had to make a change, and Wilson got the heave-ho. He played only nickel as a rookie, played primarily nickel then once he got rotated out last year. And so he has to show he can be in all situations, true 3-down guy. His athleticism is great. His effort is phenomenal. He's able to close space a ton. It's why he had 126 tackles.
Record.
I'll take 126 tackles last year, despite having a more limited role and not playing in every single down because he can just get to the ball in a lot of ways. His sideline to sideline chase is really impressive. In coverage, I think he's okay. It's hard to be a good coverage linebacker in the NFL today. I think it's okay. It's better than Patrick Queen, but it's got to be better against the run. There's no question about that.
Do you think we could potentially see his special team snaps go down a little bit?
Yeah, probably played a ton last year. He became captain last year once Miles Killebrew went down, which I think speaks to something about Wilson's preparation. And I think Killebrew cited, Wilson always being in film study and kind of leading some of those meetings as a reason why he got the C last year. We'll see if that goes to Carson Bruner or somebody else this year. But it felt a little bit high, but it depends on his role. If he's not an every down guy, then what's the need to reduce his role? Nick Herbig probably will see his special team snaps reduce a little bit. So, would Wilson continue to assume those? Yeah, he might. So it probably comes down a little bit because it was just so darn high last year, but it may not come down dramatically. It just depends on his role.
Right. I'm viewing probably more along the lines of 275 or so. That feels like more right for him. But that'd be one thing to keep an eye on once the season gets underway. Obviously, need him to be a key part of this defense up the spine for him, assuming he doesn't get overtaken by, say, a Cole Holcomb.
Per PFR, he had 732 defensive snaps last year, had 126 tackles. Now, I don't know how many additional he got on special teams because I assume he got some with all that he played. But even if you just put him at 116 defensive tackles on 732 defensive snaps, I mean, that is a pretty high ratio, a tackle on 16% of your defensive snaps, which kind of just speaks to his athleticism. But you want to see more tackles for loss. He had 6 last year. I think 2 of those were sack related, so 4 that were non-sack. I just want to see this guy make some more plays, as you said, at or behind the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
All right, next on the list is the other Wilson and Roman Wilson. So in a similar boat there, third-year player trying to really impress. Obviously, Roman's had a tougher path than Peyton to playing time, but it's really kind of do or die, make or break for one Roman Wilson, Dave.
Yeah, friends, Roman, Alex, lend me your ears. How about that? Let's see. After having most of his 2024 rookie season wiped out by that ankle injury, second NFL season production obviously wasn't what many hoped it would be. It was originally a third-round pick in 2024. Registered just 12 receptions for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns on 21 total targets in 13 contests. He also fumbled once during the season, got himself a little bit in the doghouse, it seemed like, later on in the season. Never really looked like he was completely on the same page with Aaron Rodgers there. He played just 253 offensive snaps last year during the regular season, with 11 more on special teams. That's not a lot, obviously, in either category. To close out the 2025 season, I think we mentioned this the other day, he was a healthy, inactive player for 4 of the Steelers' final 5 regular season games. That's certainly not the way that you want your second NFL season to end as a former third-round draft pick there. He was also a healthy and active for the lone playoff game last year. He played just 9 offensive snaps beyond week 13, man.
Mm.
Should be noted that most of Roman Wilson's 2025 offensive snaps came with him lined up on the outside as well, too. He never seemed to be able to get himself on the same page with Rodgers. That likely played a big part with him being inactive. That, along with him not being a special teams asset, that probably played a part in him being inactive quite often for the final quarter of the season. As a positive, he did average 5.5 yards after the catch in 2025, and he was not charged with a drop as far as I can tell. As a run blocker in those limited situations, I thought he showed a lot of effort in that phase of the game. I have him as an above the line player when it comes to effort and his results in that. But look, this guy wasn't drafted just because of his potential run blocking ability. This is a big summer for Roman Wilson. I think good news is he was part of the group that went out west with Aaron Rodgers to have some bonding. I don't know how much actual football maybe they got done there, but regardless, the fact that he was in that group was a good sign. The Steelers obviously added Pittman to the roster this offseason. He's expected to be the Robin to Batman DK Metcalf, if you will. The Steelers also drafted Jeremy Bernard in the second round this year. You've got guys expected to make the roster in Caden Weegan, who obviously won't see a lot of time on offense. Ben Skoranek, we expect to make the 53-man roster mainly as a special teams ace. We'll see what happens with Eli Heidenreich. In addition to him needing to prove that he can be a reliable, productive third or fourth wide receiver this summer, he also probably needs to show a little bit more on special teams, although he's not the kind of guy you expect to be a 4-phase type of guy. But can you get anything out of him? Maybe on one return team, that would help his cause a little bit here. Look, the Steelers are hoping that he can at least function adequately as a rotational third wide receiver on offense. More than likely share time with Jeremy Bernard throughout the 2026 season as he cuts his teeth as a rookie. I think final roster construction later this summer could go a long way when it comes to Wilson ultimately making the initial 53-man unit. Injuries at the position could obviously, factor into that. Right now, I'm with you. I have Wilson inside the bubble right now, but I don't know if I'm writing his name down in pen right now. If indeed he does make this roster as a third, fourth wide receiver, need to see more than 12 receptions out of him. I think that goes without saying. Do I expect him to be a 40 or 50 catch guy? If this team stays healthy at the wide receiver position, no. But look, you got to get more than 12 receptions out of him, especially considering the kind of snap volume we think he could potentially play. Needs a strong preseason. I expect we'll see him a bunch out there during the preseason, and it's a big summer for him. It's a make or break summer, make or break training camp, I think, for him.
It is. A good summer could have him function as a number 3 to open the season, even ahead of Jeremy Bernard. A bad summer could have him off the roster entirely. So there's a lot of daylight between those two scenarios, and it's all in his hands. And he'll have to show he's on the same page as Aaron Rodgers in terms of signals and sight adjustments and audibles and reading defenses and working leverage and all those things. I think he even last year, I thought there were some moments he had some good tape. The ball just didn't always find him. But I thought there were some moments, and then obviously Rodgers sort of preferred the veterans, and Wilson had to sit the rest of the season in favor of Scantling and Adam Thielen and those guys. But when you have another year together, Rodgers and Wilson, where Wilson doesn't feel like he's sort of a quasi rookie. Last year was sort of that year after barely playing his true rookie season. So no excuses. It's got to come together for this guy. No question about that. Could he help out on special teams a little bit? Probably get some work in the kick return game. Dabbled in that at Michigan, and they need somebody opposite Caden Weegan. So I imagine Roman Wilson will be a candidate. Will he get that job or not? Who's to say? But the history on guys like Wilson is not super kind. The study I did earlier this offseason, a top 100 picks with his 12 receptions through 2 years. If he hits 20 plus receptions in year 3, it's going to buck history. He certainly could, and history is just that, but that's sort of the number that's been in my head. Can he surpass 20? But that all begins with a good summer, Dave.
And look, good news for him is you got a new head coach, you got new position group, coach and Adam Henry. So sort of a fresh slate, if you will, because without a doubt, for whatever you want to call it, the fact that he was inactive for as many games as he was to close out the season, and what did I say? 9 offensive snaps beyond week 13. That's not trending in the great direction for him. So it's a positive. I think that you got fresh set of members of the coaching staff working with him, and hopefully he can change the narrative on himself this summer.
To have a little fun with the last two Wilsons, Peyton and Roman. Which number is higher in 2026, Dave? Peyton Wilson's special team snaps or Roman Wilson's receiving yards?
Oh boy, that's a good one.
Yeah, I was trying to rack my brain as we were talking about a good comparable, but you said Wilson for Peyton probably going to reduce the special team snaps a little bit. Roman hopefully upticks the receiving yards, which is higher.
Oh boy, that's a real good one, because I just said maybe around 275 special team snaps for Roman Wilson, and for Peyton Wilson, and if Roman Wilson were to hit 25 receptions at even 10 yards per reception, that's 250. Oh Lord.
I'm gonna turn the screws here and make you choose.
Yeah, you know what? And no offense, Roman Wilson fans out there, I'm gonna take Peyton Wilson has more special team snaps than Roman Wilson has receiving yards.
All right, I'll do the same.
That's a
Dave.
good one.
Thank you. Yeah, on the fly, no charge on that one, Dave.
All
but
right,
I'll take Peyton Wilson as well.
That's a good one. Made me think a little bit. Well, I wonder what the listeners think about that.
Yeah.
Who, regular season special team snaps versus Roman Wilson regular season receiving yards. Which is more? The terrible podcast at gmail.com. Kudos to you. That's a tough one.
Might put a poll on that on Twitter too, to kind of get the as many responses as possible. But big year 3, and if Wilson does win the job out of the gate, and kind of a best case scenario for him, does he lose it midway through? Can Jeremy Bernard get it back? I don't know, but those guys will be competing, making each other better, and they're working together obviously with the route god, and so there's a friendly competition there, and that's always good to see.
Absolutely.
And Roman certainly will never be accused of not working and not putting in the effort. He's been certainly working tirelessly, it looks like, throughout the summer.
Yep, agreed.
All right, last but not least, Dave, in your 90 and 30 for 2026 is Jacoby Windman in his third stint with the Steelers, brought back earlier this offseason, got a bit of NFL experience in Carolina, and now trying to do the same in Pittsburgh.
All right, the 91st player and the final one we will talk about, Jacoby Windman. Originally signed, he's an old friend, signed with the Steelers in 2024 as an undrafted free agent out of Michigan State, finds himself back in Pittsburgh ahead of training camp this year. This will mark Windman's second training camp with the Steelers. His return to Pittsburgh comes on the heels of him being with the Carolina Panthers for a few different stints, in addition to playing for the Columbus Aviators in in the UFL for a few games this past spring. His previous time with the Steelers included him being a member of the practice squad. His time with the Panthers included stints on their practice squad and a little bit on their 53-man roster. For his NFL career, he's played in 9 regular season games, with 8 of those coming in 2024. Rookie season with the Panthers, he has registered 22 regular season tackles and 1 tackle for loss to go along with 1.5 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, 2 passes defense. 4 of his 22 tackles in regular season action have come on special teams. He has played 127 total defensive snaps to date and 100 more on special teams. In 2025, last season, all 9 of his regular season snaps came on special teams with the Panthers. He has been used as an inside linebacker and an edge rusher throughout his short NFL and UFL careers, in addition to playing quite a bit on special teams. I think the biggest question here with Windman returning, that means obviously he missed all of the team's OTA minicamp sessions. In short, he'll have a lot of catching up to do once camp gets underway. He should, however, feel comfortable at St. Vincent College. He's been there before, spent his rookie training camp with him there. Be interesting to see where he lines up the most. We just talked about kind of that short depth chart at outside linebacker, and with Windman playing, some on the edge throughout his career, where will he mainly play? With the Steelers at inside linebacker during the 2024 season, he did log a few snaps at outside linebacker in that third and final preseason game in 2024. So they have a little bit of tape on him as well, too, as an outside linebacker. The Panthers also mainly used Windman as an inside linebacker during his time with them. Special teams ability have likely played a big part in him being able to hang around the NFL for the last couple of seasons. Because of that, look for him to get quite a bit of playing time on special teams during the preseason. We should also see him play on defense during the preseason games, with most of his snaps, I believe, mostly coming at inside linebacker. We'll see how, whether or not that's a good guess. Chances of making a 53-man roster aren't very good, you wouldn't think, and especially when you consider the team is probably at most going to keep 10 total linebackers, more realistically 9 linebackers. Chance of remaining once the preseason, sticking on the 53-man roster aren't great. More than likely, we're looking or talking about him as a guy battling for a practice squad spot as we get into this thing a little bit further into the preseason there, which, by the way, 21 days from yesterday will be the Steelers' first preseason game. So circle that on your calendar. But I think really more realistically here, you're looking at a guy battling for a practice squad spot.
Unless they do the thing you're talking about of cutting Malik Harrison. And if they do that and then keep a 5th inside linebacker, which is their norm, albeit under the old coaching staff, then Windman could grab that spot. He's got some NFL experience with Carolina. He's played well in Pittsburgh, his first training camp. I think back in 2024, I noted that he had a really good summer. He played hard and was pretty physical. He can play inside, play outside. Was in the UFL, had 3.5 sacks, a sack and a half in his first year in Carolina. So there's something there. They certainly, I think, upgraded whenever they released undrafted rookie free agent Dalen Carnell. And so, yeah, I don't know exactly where he'll play. Probably more inside than edge, because you need 3 teams of your inside linebackers, 3 pairings. So first, second, third team, you got 6 right now, Windman being that 6th. And so that's likely to be where he'll see a lot of snaps, but he may moonlight both inside and outside, especially whenever injuries strike. So if someone told me, had a crystal ball, but just a really ineffective one of just all they could tell me a month from now is Jacoby Windman's going to make the 53, I wouldn't be shocked by that news.
It's not impossible, as I like to say. It will. Look, he's going to get a lot of burn during the preseason, so be interesting. He needs to be a guy that we're talking about on, the podcast after games in some form or fashion. Boy, what'd you think about Jacoby Windman and play? His play at either inside linebacker or off the edge, or notably special teams there. If we're not talking about him, in a positive manner throughout throughout the 3 preseason games, his chances will obviously decrease. But if we are talking about him because of the amount of burn we expect him to get during the preseason, then I think that would obviously help his chances of making a 53-man roster.
Right, and he's got experience, and that's always useful in the preseason because often you're facing rookies and guys who've never played an NFL game before in the regular season, and so Windman you would expect to be moving faster and quicker, even though it's a new scheme for him to pick up in Pittsburgh. But yeah, there's some reasons to think he'll have a good summer.
Yep, I agree.
All right, any final thoughts on the final 91st man in this series, Dave?
No, I'm glad it was only 91 men because I kind of go into this. I started it probably a few days later than I normally do for the sheer fact I was waiting to see if there'd be any last minute roster shuffling. And I think this is the first time in a couple of years that I've been able to get the 90, or actually the 91 that I started the moment I started writing these up, ended up, I think, no, I think there was actually one move, but it was somewhere later in the alphabet and hadn't got to that player yet there. So just goes to show you that there had been a lot of movement on this roster really since I guess it would be the latter part of June.
Yeah, the last moves they made was June 25th when they signed Amari Harvey, and then Whitman himself was signed June 17th. And
Right.
so that kind of fit in well. You didn't have to adjust your list for that because he was last on the list. But it's been quiet. Thought maybe a punter would get added, but it looks like they're going to just rock with Johnston throughout camp.
All right. I hope the readers enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. I always enjoy going through these guys as we talk about them after being written up through the off season. It fills a lot of time on the podcast as well too, and it helps me learn a lot more about several players that I just knew a little about heading into the end of June.
I was just going to ask you, what player do you think you learned most about by doing this series? A guy maybe you didn't know much about, or a guy you just learned more about than you did 2 months ago?
I'm not going to answer that for the sheer fact that I know we have a reader question in here
Oh,
asking sort
okay.
of along the same lines. So let's mop up any loose ends that we have and then get into the reader emails, of which one is along the lines trying to steal your thunder there.
All right, I respect the segue. In terms of loose ends, I think that's basically everything. I'm just trying to look at any sort of news that might be coming in right now. I don't think there's really much. The Ravens released quarterback Diego Pavia, which brought up a lot of social media attention,
That was a
and
short
that's
time,
I knew you were going to angle. I was setting you up for that joke there.
but
And
try to
Mike
deal.
Mike DeFabo thinks that Dylan Cook will get the nod over Maxi Honachor week 1 at right tackle, and that sort of tracks with whenever I spoke with the Packers and Cowboys guys to talk about McCarthy training camp expectations, that usually the veteran wins out over the rookie, at least initially. The rookie might, replace him mid-season, and I think that's basically all I got.
All right, let's get to some listener emails and close out today's show as Alex Kozora steal his thunder there. How about from an Alex Jacobs? Silly offseason question. Hi, David Ox. Given that the slow days of the offseason are going to be coming to a close here soon, I thought I'd send in a silly question before the seriousness of training camp begins. He writes, you are Omar Khan. You are walking into the magical forest one day when suddenly your path is blocked by a fairy waving a terrible towel. After a lengthy discussion about socioeconomic issues at play in Gumdrop Kingdom,
Okay.
the fairy grants you a strange power. You are given the ability to restore any former Steelers player not currently in the NFL to their career peak and then sign them to the 2026 squad on a veteran minimum contract. Which former player do you sign to give you the team the best chance of winning the Super Bowl? He says maybe the obvious answer is a quarterback, i.e. Ben, but I'd be curious if there were any other options you'd pick. Maybe a wide receiver like AB or a star like Troy. In my opinion, getting an inside linebacker who can wear the green dot and be a big run stuffer also makes sense, like James Ferrier or Lambert. P.S. Alex, any updates on the MLB The Show?
Mm,
Okay. Boy, there's
what
so
a
many.
question.
Well, uh, he Gumdrop Kingdom and fairies and man, there's several different ways. You go down. You can answer that question. You're given the ability to restore any former Steelers player not currently in NFL to their career peak, and then sign them to the 2026 on a veteran. Boy, give me Joe, me Joe Green, man. I'm gonna shoot for the moon here. Give me Mean Joe Green at his peak, on a veteran benefit contract.
Yeah, I mean, really, I guess the answer should be quarterback, as the reader said, whether that's Bradshaw or Ben. People can debate and choose, but for some reason, my first thought went to Troy, as the reader also mentioned, and maybe the defense needs less help than the offense, but just a special talent like Troy, the force multiplier. That's sort of where my brain went to. But obviously, if you bring back Ben in his prime, that probably is the quote unquote correct answer of it all. As for the show,
What about Ryan? What about Ryan Shazier? What was it? The 16? What did he have in that one game against the 49ers? Was it like 16 or 17? That game that Ryan Shazier, where he was just all over the
Mhm.
place.
Sure.
Boy,
Yeah, there's
how would you like to have Ryan Shazier back
absolutely.
at that stage?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously no real wrong answer, so to speak, of any of the Steelers greats, and of course, you can go through the whole '70s Rolodex of Swan and Stallworth and Mel Blount and just Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris. I mean, the whole laundry list of Hall of Famers there. But I don't know, my mind just went to Troy as the first one. But if you
Okay.
thought about it, then you probably go with Big Ben.
All right. How about your Pirates MLB the show update? And please tell me you DFA'd Santana way before the Pirates did.
He's doing much better in my world than he is
Oh,
in reality. I have not played much in a couple of days. I need to get back on it before training camp starts. Been playing College Football 27. I have my Purdue dynasty. We are trying to resurrect the Boilermakers, and I think we're 4-8 right now. We're a 4-win team. We just lost a heartbreaker to Wisconsin last night, Dave. Real tough in the Kozora household, but trying to fit it in before training camp starts up.
all right, here's one from Paul Lutz, Roman Resurgence. Hello, gentlemen, and fantastic job as always. I know there's been a lot of talk of Roman Wilson not making the 53-man roster, but I have to say I think he will emerge this year as our number 3 receiver, and Alex is to thank for that. Last year, Alex made a collection of clips of Roman Wilson getting open when nobody else was. He was the best route runner we have in the wide receiver room, he says. I view last year essentially as his rookie season, and with Mike McCarthy, offense can see him being utilized more. Last year, the progressions were wide receiver 1 and then check down. If this year we can go through 2 receivers in the progression before the check down and he can become open as well as he did last year, I don't see how he doesn't have a breakout season. He says, I'm not saying anything crazy, but maybe 30 to 35 catches. Could you see a similar scenario play out? And if not, why? Appreciate you taking my emails. Keep up the great work. All right. I will start with this, Paul. If Roman Wilson catches 30 to 35 receptions during the regular season, and let's assume that that's at least 10 yards per reception. We're talking 300 to 350 yards, and that would be more than my expectations right now. Is that necessarily a breakout? I mean, it's a breakout for him, as we mentioned in the 90 and 30 breakdown on him. That it's got to, it better be double than 12. Let's just put it to you that way. There. Uh, it's going to be interesting. He needs to prove, and he needs to keep himself on the roster, on the 53-man roster. And then can he do enough to at least have the lion's share of maybe that third wide receiver role over Jeremy Bernard, at least at the start of the season? And if he gets that, how long can he hold on to that, as kind of Alex alluded to, moving forward there? I think it's okay to be at least bullish on Roman Wilson to the degree maybe uh, of 30 to 35 receptions. But anything more than that, it feels like a lot's got to happen for that to exceed, say, 35 catches.
And probably injuries to your top guys if you're going to get to 40 plus. Yeah, I mean, there's reason to still believe in this guy. At some point, it just has to be, he has to show it and prove it. When you're a third year guy with 12 career receptions, it's not a lot of like confidence you can have and say, like, I am super, super confident this guy's going to do X, Y, and Z, but there's still reason to believe in the talent and the skill set and getting healthy and quarterback continuity and the things we talked about. So we'll see. It's all in front of him, just in the way it is for, say, Caleb Johnson or other guys we've talked about in similar positions. And so we'll just have to see what it looks like on the grass. That's all that will ultimately matter. I was going to ask you when we talked about him earlier, Dave, is there a wide receiver who could push Roman Wilson off the roster? Or if he doesn't make it, is it just because he struggles, or to use your phrase, the math is mathing, where a Heidenreich or somebody else makes the team?
I think it's going to be interesting to see Heidenreich. But even if Heidenreich makes it, and once again, I haven't penciled out my 53-man roster, I would imagine I would still have Roman Wilson as part of that room. I think if one for one, somebody that could potentially push.
Is there a
Uh,
receiver who could push in that collection of guys below Skoranek?
you know, Brandon A.T. Perry and Brandon Smith have cups of coffee, if you will. I think, yeah, in the NFL, those two would jump to my mind. I think in the forefront, A.T. Perry had a nice little string there early on, right? But who's the better special teamer between Smith and Perry, and how much more special teams value do those guys have than a Roman Wilson? Probably both a little bit more, but it's not extreme. But I think those would be the two guys that I would think had the have the best shot if Roman's not having the summer that you think he should have. And if you ended up keeping, let's say, 6 wide receivers, I guess, in that room, those two would be the ones that would jump to my mind, A.T. Perry and Brandon Smith.
Yeah, I would say Perry, who also has 12 career receptions like Roman Wilson, and then maybe Max Herman, last year's camp darling. He offers special teams value if he has a really good summer and finishes it strongly, which he didn't do last year. Then maybe that gets him the nod. But it is still hard to see an actual receiver push him off the roster. It'd be where they only kept 5 receivers, or they kept some other, Heidenreich was sort of in a quasi receiver hybrid role. That seems more likely, but we'll see.
All right, the final one from Ted Webb in Jacksonville, North Carolina. This is a good one. Question for you, Dave. While doing this series, this 90 and 30 series, which player did you know the least about and you gain a lot more knowledge about? And second thing, while doing these, did you have a guy definitely on the outside of the 53-man roster that after doing this, you have him maybe making the team or on the bubble, or better yet, if not making the team, maybe a better chance of making at least a practice squad than you ever gave him a chance? That is a great question. And boy, I'm trying to roll back through my head on this. I will tell you two names that immediately jumped to my mind when going over this. Jack Henderson was one. I knew a little bit about him. I learned a lot more about him in writing him up and going through some of his tape and going back over usage and all. What a very versatile guy coming out of Minnesota, and I think a guy that's potentially could shine on special teams. He would be a guy that I think I had more outside the bubble initially, or way outside the bubble, that I moved closer to maybe still outside the bubble, but a guy that definitely I think could be in play special teams overall. I think the other, I would say maybe there's a couple of other guys here. Darnell Savage. I think I know I'm a little bit more bullish on him than Alex is from our conversation in 90 and 30. I don't want to rehash all that, but he is a guy that I think if he can, this coaching staff knows him pretty well. If he can show some of that versatility and, maybe kind of that backup star player, and if he can give you a little something on special teams, I think he is a guy that I wasn't very excited overall. I understood the link to the Steelers and why they would go after and sign him to the 91-man roster during the offseason. There was a whole waiting game period with him, and how much is that related to him having to get healthy, yada, yada, yada. But that would be one guy that I think learning more about and looking at the bigger picture here that maybe I have closer to being on the bubble than I initially had the moment that he was signed. So that would be another one. And I think one other one here might be Anthony Goodlow
Mm.
on the defensive line. This is a guy that's had a little bit of a cup of coffee, guy that 6'5", 300 pounds, kind of fits the mold there. You look at the back end of that defensive line depth chart and guys that could maybe, if we're talking about 7 defensive linemen being kept, could Anthony Goodlow have a good training camp in summer and when the dust clears, he end up being on the 53-man roster. I would say I moved him from way outside the bubble to maybe closer to the outside of the bubble. So that would be another one
Give
there.
me one offensive player. You had 3 really, and Henderson was my choice too. Give me an offensive guy though, just to round out the list.
In other words, a guy that maybe was way outside the bubble.
Or even just somebody that you learned a good amount about. Maybe he didn't move the needle, but like Brandon Smith, I'm guessing is somebody you learned a good bit about.
Yeah, him and A.T. Perry. I think the
Okay.
two that I mentioned, I think are legitimate type. At least guys worth monitoring, moving through the rest of the off season. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else here that would fall into any of that conversation on the offensive side of the football. No, I'm not really seeing anybody other than that. So I think those 2 wide receivers, Smith and A.T. Perry, would be guys.
All
Look,
right.
Greg, look, Crippen. Don't sleep on
Mm.
Crippen. Uh, don't sleep on Crippen. I'll just
Yeah.
say that. I'm not saying 53-man roster, but man, if he has a good training camp and preseason as a center, and we'll see if they give him any burn whatsoever at a guard spot throughout any of this. But this could be a guy that we think definitely will make the practice squad by the time the dust settles.
Do we have some news here, Dave? Oh, this is very interesting. This is not Steelers related, but this is some news. LeBron James has made his decision. He is signing, according to Shams, a 2-year, $8 million deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. So, very cheap deal. Apparently, there's a player option on it, too. 2 years is also notable, given his age, and he is going to be a Sixer. I got a Sixers fan who is about to blow up my group chat because he's probably losing his mind right now.
All right. Okay, that's a cheap deal. 2-year,
Yeah.
$8 million. Wow. How much did he? Do you know what he made last year? I don't know.
More than $8 million, I'm
Okay.
guessing. I don't know. It was probably 40 million. Couldn't tell you. I can try to look it up, but no one probably cares.
All right. I don't think we have any other breaking news or anything along
I
those
should have had
lines.
you do that. Well,
Ah,
it wasn't Steelers related. I didn't want to.
okay.
All right, so fair.
All
All right,
right,
David.
that's all the emails. Great one from Ted Webb to end up. How about any of you listening out there? 90 my 90 and 30 series. Who did you maybe learn more about through this that maybe you are more bullish on, whether it be practice squad or closer to the bubble? Maybe that'll be an interesting. Maybe we'll get some feedback for the Monday show when it comes to that. Obviously, on the Monday show, we'll be getting everybody ready for the start of training camp, being a day away, and any news that happens. Maybe we're talking about Drew signing his rookie contract. Whatever happens between now and Monday, Alex and I will be back then to definitely cover it. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. You can email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button and go to PayPal, make a donation that way. Much appreciated. And also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, as usual, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, follow the directions. That way, get a username and password, and then hit log in to use that to get the ad-free version of the site. So, until Monday, everybody have a great weekend. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.